The entire capital believes I am deeply in love with Pei Zhun. From the day I ascended the throne, I appointed him chancellor, exempted him from court kneeling rituals. And some even saw me paint hundreds of portraits of him in the palace halls. Yet Pei Zhun had long since found his true love. In the grand hall, clutching his ceremonial tablet, he knelt before all officials, pleading for me to grant him marriage to Liu Qiqi. Leaning against the dragon throne, I studied his face so strikingly similar to my own and sighed with a hint of regret. Grant it, expecting my wrath. The court watched in astonishment as I relented with surprising ease. Pei Zhun, too, looked up at me in shock. I rose lazily, cracking my neck without a care for my image. If there is nothing further, the court is dismissed. With that, before anyone could speak, I hurriedly turned and left, returning to the imperial study. I picked up my brush as usual and began painting. The figure in the painting stood tall and graceful, holding prayer beads. Yet the face remained blank only, a pair of luminous, almond-shaped eyes remained. Eunuch Yu reverently presented the cinnabar. My fingertip dipped into the crimson, dotting the corner of the eyes in the painting. I stared blankly at those eyes, sighed, then rolled up the painting as usual, instructing Eunuch Yu to store it in the secret compartment. Eunuch Yu took the scroll, his brow furrowed so deeply it could trap a fly, his face etched with sorrow. If your Imperial Highness cannot bear to part with Minister Pei, why torment yourself thus? Knowing Eunuch Yu, like everyone else, had misunderstood, I offered no explanation. With a wave of my hand, I dismissed him, bowing my head. I focused on wiping the cinnabar from my fingertips. Suddenly, I recalled Pei Zhun's deeply affectionate demeanor in the grand hall, and I couldn't help but let out a low chuckle. Truth be told, Pei Zhun and Liu Qiqi were merely passing acquaintances. I didn't believe in any deep-rooted affection between them. His urgent plea for me to grant the marriage was likely born of fear that I might one day, on a whim, summon him to the palace. The Great Liang Kingdom's edict forbids harem members from participating in state affairs. If I truly did that, all his years of ambition and aspirations would be washed away. But I genuinely had no such intention. My kindness toward him stemmed solely from that strikingly similar face. As for whom Pei Zhun chose to love or marry, I couldn't care less. My fingertips grew slightly red from rubbing. I tapped the armrest, and the chair back creaked backward. I sank back comfortably. Come to think of it, Xiao Li taught me this mechanism. The lotus flowers in the courtyard had bloomed again. Through the window, I counted each blossom carefully, drifting into a deep sleep without realizing it. Then, I fell ill. The imperial physician diagnosed it as a chill caught during the night. Since returning to the capital, I had never been ill. This sickness struck fiercely, forcing me to cancel court for 5 consecutive days as I lay in bed recuperating. Even the arrival of the Prince of Huainan in the capital could not be overseen by me, and I had to entrust it to Pei Zhun. Rumors swirled outside, claiming I had harmed my health and lost my zest for life over Pei Zhun's marriage. On the day the Prince of Huainan departed, I was tucked under the covers, munching on sweet dates while reading a storybook. Eunuch Yu suddenly knelt before my bed with a thud, tears streaming down his aged face. Your Imperial Highness, if you do not attend court soon, the ministers will have no one to rely on. The court is in turmoil. I peeked out from under the covers, only to see Eunuch Yu's enormous snot bubble. Even the sweet dates in my mouth tasted different. Stop crying. I'll attend court tomorrow. I pushed the dates and storybook under my pillow and said sternly. Eunuch Yu smiled through his tears. I quickly burrowed back under the covers, unwilling to watch. The next day, I was yawning as I was dragged out of bed, my eyes dark and puffy as I sat in the throne hall. The court officials, seeing my haggard face, hesitated over whether to present their reports. Has the imperial princess not yet recovered? General Wang spoke first. Scratching his head as he looked at me with concern, I yawned widely, my tear-filled eyes blurring as I looked at him. Fine. It was true. The illness had struck fiercely, but faded quickly. I'd recovered 2 days prior. My current state was merely the result of staying up late last night devouring a storybook. Your Imperial Highness, amidst your state affairs, you must still remember to cherish your health. Scholar Liu said with concern. I nodded with a smile. Do my ministers have matters to report? Flooding in Zhengzhou. Chancellor Pei has dispatched flood control teams. Bandit activity outside the capital. General Wang has sent troops to suppress it. The son of Minister Q galloped recklessly through the streets, injuring people. The Imperial Guard has administered 30 strokes of the cane and imprisoned him. My lips twitched stiffly. I glanced at Eunuch Yu beside me, but no one seemed panicked. After a moment's thought, I said, regarding the floods in Zhengzhou, beyond flood control, relief efforts are essential. The treasury's abundance comes from the people. Now is the time to use it for the people. Minister Pei shall oversee the disaster relief. Yes, Your Highness. Bandit activity is rising. Suppression alone is insufficient. Many of these men turn to banditry out of desperation. Since that is the case, we shall provide them livelihoods. Those willing to enlist may join the army. Those wishing to return home shall be granted plots of land outside the city. General Wang, you shall oversee this matter. Your servant obeys your command, and for the son of Minister Kum Yu. I smiled faintly. 30 strokes are too few. Drag him out and administer another 20 before sending him home. Thank you. Princess. Minister Q threw himself to his knees in gratitude. Any other matters to report? This servant has one request, said Pei Zhun, stepping forward from the front ranks. I wish to take several days' leave to prepare for my betrothal. I heard a collective gasp from below. My gaze shifted backward to find General Wang, eyes wide as saucers, peering furtively between Pei Zhun and me like a startled rabbit in a melon patch. I raised an eyebrow, meeting his gaze. General Wang's dark face paled momentarily before he quickly bowed his head, feigning nonchalance. Like a quail, I laughed out loud. Eunuch Yu thought I'd lost my mind from anger. He hurriedly brought me a cup of tea and began fanning me soothingly. I pushed his intrusive fan aside and looked at Pei Zhun with a hint of resignation. Minister Pei, are you truly intent on marrying Liu Qiqi? Yes, but as far as I know, you've only known each other for a mere month. Kiki and I fell in love at first sight. Chancellor Pei isn't the type to fall in love at first sight. Pei Zhun had been keeping his eyes downcast, but at these words, he lifted his gaze to meet mine, his peach blossom eyes flickering with shifting light. After a long moment, he spoke slowly. The imperial princess is mistaken. I am. I had granted Pei Zhun's leave after all. Originally, I feared that his hasty marriage, prompted by me, would both waste his own potential and wrong that young lady. But seeing his solemn expression at last, perhaps I had misjudged him all along. After finishing the painting, I leaned against the window, gazing at the pond. In the wind, the lotus blossoms swayed gently. Suddenly, I recalled a year ago. I had just crawled through the dog hole in the back garden of Kiyomizu Temple. It was also a gust like this that blew dust into my eyes. When I wiped the corner of my eye, the first thing I saw was the lotus pattern on Xiao Li's sleeve. Next time you're hungry, you can come find me. Xiao Li crouched down, meeting my gaze at eye level before handing me a steamed bun. His voice was soft as he added, through the front gate. His hand was close to mine. The lotus-patterned Buddhist beads wrapped around his wrist carried a faint, lingering scent of sandalwood. That was the first time I had ever seen Xiao Li. The sound of doors opening behind me made me lower my gaze and compose myself. Oh dear. Princess. You've only just recovered from your illness. You mustn't catch a chill again. Eunuch Yu rushed in, hurriedly shutting the window behind him. What is it? I stretched lazily, yawning as I reclined on the specially made chair. Grand Scholar Liu and Chancellor Pei request an audience. I swiftly returned the chair to its upright position and sat up straight. Show them in. The two entered on seeking retirement, the other to express gratitude for the imperial match. Seeing Grand Scholar Liu's ruddy complexion and vigorous spirit, I spoke to persuade him to stay. The imperial princess has made remarkable progress lately. However, this humble servant is advanced in years. Therefore, I have already secured another tutor for Her Highness. She will meet him at the incense altar ceremony in 3 days. That shouldn't be necessary. I chuckled awkwardly. It is essential. The imperial princess may decide whether to grant this old man's retirement after meeting him. Master Liu stroked his white beard and chuckled. Incidentally, that gentleman also hails from Fengzhou, the place where my mother was exiled. She never saw my father again before her death. It was only after I returned to the capital that I had her remains interred alongside his. I smiled and respectfully saw Master Liu off. Turning back, I found Pei Zhun standing silently before my desk, eyes lowered. I glanced greedily toward the corners of his eyes, only to meet his gaze as he lifted his head. Princess, this painting is exquisite. Might I have the honor of receiving it? Only then did I realize I hadn't put away today's work. Pei Zhun reached out to take the painting. Don't touch it. His hand froze mid-air as I hurried forward to block him. I bent down and rolled up the paper. Pei Zhun silently watched my movements, his voice growing increasingly hoarse. Why do this? Princess. I turned to face him. In the flickering light, his handsome features were torn by shadows, as if consumed by immense anguish. I sighed inwardly and said, Minister Pei, the man in this painting is not you. Pei Zhun's expression remained unchanged. It truly isn't you. Seeing his disbelief, I grew impatient, my voice rising several pitches. Pei Zhun pondered for a moment before speaking slowly. I am about to marry. I also ask the imperial princess to take care of herself and not grieve over someone unworthy. With that, Pei Zhun bowed respectfully to me and turned to leave. I watched him walk away, speechless. This man was utterly impervious to reason truly. Nothing about him was likable except his face. During Pei Zhun's wedding leave, he didn't attend court for 3 consecutive days. Bored out of my mind, I leaned back in my high seat, watching the old men argue themselves red-faced over trivial matters. At least when Pei Zhun was present, I could gaze at that face so strikingly similar to Xiao Li's and drift into thought. Princess, the incense altar festival commences today. We should depart without delay, General Wang declared in a booming voice, striding forward. Lost in my own thoughts, I jolted awake at his sudden presence. Shall we? Go. I glanced inquiringly at the elders below. Yes, Imperial Princess, the first act after inheriting this title upon returning to the capital was to establish the annual incense altar festival. At this gathering, all the great Buddhist masters of Daliang would come together to debate scriptures. The scent of sandalwood would waft through the air for 3 unbroken days. The Bodhi temple hosting the festival was not far from the palace, and the sedan chair arrived swiftly. Palace attendants lifted the sedan curtain. I tucked the storybook beneath the cushion and rose slowly. Greetings, Imperial Princess. All present prostrated themselves on the ground. Out of the corner of my eye, one figure stood apart, bowing respectfully. I focused my gaze. It was Pei Zhun, who had just become betrothed to Liu Qicha. Today, he wore a striking red ensemble. Xiao Li never wore such vivid colors. He favored only white robes. My interest waned as I shifted my gaze, preparing to signal for them to rise. Your Imperial Highness, may you be blessed with peace. A clear, familiar voice sounded from behind me. In that instant, I felt all the blood in my body surge to my chest before exploding outward. Slowly, incredulously, I turned around. By the carriage stood a figure, clothed in snow-white monk's robes, his jet-black hair flowing freely, prayer beads twined around his fingers, his hands pressed together in greeting, a faint smile playing at his lips. The tear tattoo at the corner of his eye glowed intensely, its heat making my own eyes sting. "Xiao Li," I murmured. Xiao Li walked slowly toward me, stopping leisurely 5 paces away. "You've grown taller," he murmured in a voice so low it seemed strained. I instinctively lowered my own voice. "Nonsense. I stopped growing ages ago," standing apart from the crowd. It must have looked to others like we were locked in a long, lingering gaze. "Happy birthday, my mother." The Empress Dowager was banished from the palace. Only after arriving in Fengzhou did she discover she was pregnant. Life in the mountains was harsh, and after giving birth to me, her health declined. She endured for several years before finally passing away. Even after I was welcomed back to the palace, I never spoke of my birthday in this world. Xiao Li was the last person to know my birthday. "I thought you'd forgotten my birthday last time you left. I forgot to give you this." I took the box and opened it. Inside was a string of sandalwood Buddhist prayer beads, each bead engraved with a lotus pattern. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of sandalwood wafted to my nose. I glanced at the identical bracelet on his left wrist and smiled as I slipped the gift onto my own wrist. "I've already had 3 birthdays, and you're only giving me 1 birthday gift." "No greed allowed." Xiao Li chuckled. Xiao Li gazed at me, his vibrant peach blossom eyes sparkling with amusement. Suddenly, he announced loudly, "These prayer beads were blessed by the abbot of my Shuiking temple. They shall safeguard the imperial princess' health." I looked at Xiao Li, puzzled, then smiled. "Then I thank you." After a moment of silence, I turned to the assembled guests and said, "Rise." After arranging Xiao Li's seat, I took my place at the head of the table under everyone's gaze. "Your Imperial Highness, this gentleman is Xiao Li, a high monk of the Pure Water Temple. He is the tutor I have selected for you," Scholar Liu announced in a clear voice. I smiled, about to respond. Impossible. An objection rang out from the crowd. "This is unacceptable. How can the Princess Imperial's tutor be some obscure country bumpkin?" I looked toward the speaker. It was Pei Zhun. His gaze toward Xiao Li was decidedly hostile. "Minister Pei is mistaken," Scholar Liu quickly interjected, attempting to smooth things over. "Xiao Li not only masters Buddhist doctrine, but his scholarship ranks among the foremost in Fengzhou." Pei Zhun shot Xiao Li a cold stare and said icily, "Fengzhou is remote and isolated. Who here can vouch for this man's genuine learning and ability to instruct the imperial princess?" "I could. This imperial princess wants him." Before Scholar Liu could finish, I cut him off. "Does the chancellor still harbor doubts?" My fingertip pressed against my forehead as I smiled faintly. Pei Zhun's gaze drifted to the bead necklace slipping from my wrist. After a long moment, his voice thickened with reluctance. "This servant dares not. Since the chancellor harbors doubts, I shall participate in this debate to prove myself." Xiao Li stepped forward with a faint smile, joining Pei Zhun at the front. Their figures were similar, their eyes strikingly alike. Even the placement of their termoles identical. Yet Xiao Li's brows and eyes were more elongated and refined. Years immersed in Buddhist monasteries had imbued him with a gentle aura, as warm and smooth as jade. In contrast, Pei Zhun's sharply defined features bore the stern authority of long-held power. All eyes converged on the two figures sewn radiant, one pale. Whispers began to stir through the crowd. Chancellor Pei and this Master Xiao Li bear a striking resemblance. Especially those eyes. Could it be the imperial princess? Unable to have Minister Pei has found a substitute. Listening to the speculation below, I inwardly scoffed. You've got the master-servant relationship all backwards. General Wang's gossipy gaze was uncontrollable, darting back and forth between Pei Zhun, Xiao Li, and me, Wang Shu. I called his name abruptly. Your servant is here. General Wang's head, still whirling from the spectacle, jerked back with a sharp crack at my sudden call. Gritting his teeth and clutching the back of his neck, he knelt to receive orders. Mind your neck. I smiled gently at him, then swept my gaze across the crowd. The murmurs instantly ceased. The debate commenced. I watched quietly as Xiao Li sat composed on the platform, speaking with measured calm. It felt like returning to those days at the Clearwater Temple first. Only the old abbot resided there. Then Xiao Li arrived. Xiao Li had a natural affinity for Buddhism from childhood. The abbot of Clearwater Temple took a special liking to him, accepting him as a lay disciple. He often descended the mountain, bringing me pastries upon his return. I thought I would spend my entire life waiting outside Shengjing for him to ascend the mountain. But then came the news that Emperor Li Hang was gravely ill. It was ironic. Really? My father, the emperor, had lived a life of great ambition. Yet his luck with offspring was woefully thin. He had only a few children, all of whom had died before him. Finally, they discovered I was the last remaining child outside the palace. In a panic, they rushed to bring me back to the capital. On the day the imperial guards arrived, Xiao Li was forcing me to help patch a hole in the temple roof. He said no free lunch falls from the sky, only through hard work would he bring me pastries again. Then, as we turned around, the entire group knelt before me in unison. The sight startled me, for I was still quite inexperienced with the ways of the world. Only then did I realize Xiao Li wasn't entirely correct. Luca Pi had fallen from the sky, and a huge one at that. I wouldn't have to patch dog holes for the rest of my life. On the day of departure, I donned the clothes the guards had brought from Shengjing. The maid fussed over my face for ages, gazing at the radiant beauty in the mirror. I picked up the wooden box and went to find Xiao Li with a spring in my step. I asked Xiao Li if he'd come to Shengjing with me. He wouldn't have to patch dog holes anymore, and I could make sure he ate well and lived comfortably every day. Xiao Li shook his head with a smile, closed the wooden box, and returned it to me, saying he didn't like Shengjing. But now he was here. I gently traced the lotus pattern on my wrist, feeling a flutter of excitement. Speaking of which, Xiao Li's Sishui temple was quite close to where the imperial princess used to live. Isn't it? Scholar Liu smiled at me, recalling Xiao Li's deliberately hushed voice and feigned unfamiliarity earlier. Though puzzled, I decided to conceal my connection to him. There is indeed a Kiyomizu temple on the mountain. But I've only met the old abbot. I heard he later took a lay disciple that must be him. Master Liu laughed heartily. Then it seems the imperial princess and this man are quite destined to meet. He's quite good, especially in appearance. I smiled knowingly. Looking utterly smitten, 3 days of debate passed, the incense smoke never ceasing. When Xiao Li descended from the altar 3 days later, no one doubted his worthiness as imperial tutor. He stood beside my palanquin as we returned to the palace, officials trailing slowly behind. Today, the winds in Shengjing were fierce, whipping the sedan chair's curtains wildly. I took the stuffed pancake I'd had eunuch Yu buy earlier and held it up to the window. Xiao Li, hungry. I waved the pancake in my hand. Xiao Li looked at me with amusement, then glanced back at the crowd behind us. I am, then come closer, my words. Xiao Li took 2 steps toward the palanquin. I tore off a small piece and swiftly popped it into his mouth, my fingertip brushing his lips. A peculiar warmth washed over me. Once we returned to the palace, "I'll have them prepare osmanthus sugar cakes for you," I murmured softly. Xiao Li had loved sweets since childhood. Whenever I devoured my pastries with gusto, he'd leisurely savor his sugar cakes beside me. "Thank you." Imperial Princess Xiao Li pressed his lips together in a faint smile that sent ripples through my heart. I rolled up the curtain, determined to linger. "Princess, the wind is strong today. Your constitution is delicate and would be best to avoid the draft." Eunuch Yu approached with a forced smile, shooting me urgent glances. I turned to see Pei Zhun gazing this way, his expression cold and stern. Xiao Li followed my gaze backward, curling his index finger slightly as he tapped the windowsill with his knuckle. "Perhaps the princess should return inside. I'm not done talking with you yet," I mumbled, taking a bite of my pastry. Xiao Li shot me a dismissive glance. It was the same look he gave whenever he caught me up to no good. Afterward, he dragged me off to the temple to copy scriptures. A familiar chill crept up the back of my neck. "Pretty cold in Shengjing today." "Huh?" I quickly ducked back inside. Through the gap in the lowered curtain, I saw the faint curve of a smile on Xiao Li's lips. I shoved another bite of pie into my mouth. Eunuch Yu approached with a ledger, asking which residence to assign Xiao Li as the imperial tutor. He could choose any dwelling in Shengjing. So, with a sweeping gesture, I had him placed within the palace grounds. Isn't that against protocol? Eunuch Yu stared at my impassive expression, then turned to Xiao Li with a pleading look. Xiao Li remained detached, munching on osmanthus sugar cakes. Eunuch Yu resignedly withdrew to prepare the palace quarters. Once he was out of earshot, I whispered, "Why did you pretend not to know me at the Bodhi temple? Did you give yourself away later?" "Nope. I'm sharp as a tack." I stood up, plucked a cake from Xiao Li's plate, popped it into my mouth, and mumbled indistinctly. "When I asked if you wanted to come to Shengjing, you said you didn't like it. Why are you willing now?" "Wanted to see if you'd grown taller." Xiao Li brushed the crumbs I'd spilled onto his sleeve. My curiosity piqued. I played along. "Did you miss me?" Xiao Li tapped the table, and I expertly refilled his teacup. If Eunuch Yu had seen this, he'd surely have bellowed again. "Princess, how could you do such menial work?" I pictured Eunuch Yu's expression and couldn't help but chuckle. Xiao Li shook his head without answering, instead changing the subject. While in Fengzhou, I happened to meet Scholar Liu several times. Last month, the imperial princess needed a tutor. "I thought it would be good for you to meet him." I nodded, understanding. "Did you read those military treatises I assigned before you left? I know them inside out." I crouched at Xiao Li's feet, looking up at him. Xiao Li gave me a cool glance and smiled enigmatically. "I thought these past 3 years you'd spent only currying favor with that Pei Zhun, forgetting everything I taught you. I value him because he reminds me of you." I replied honestly. Xiao Li possessed an innate sharpness of mind. He had discerned my feelings for him even before I did, which is why he avoided me for a time. But he couldn't withstand my persistent persistence. Xiao Li flicked his finger against my forehead. "Has this obsession of yours finally subsided?" "It never will." I felt a bit disheartened too. Liking someone wasn't something I could control. Xiao Li followed the palace attendants to the side hall to rest. I rose and sat back in the seat Josie had just vacated, frowning as I pondered his words. Scholar Liu had left Shengjing multiple times. I opened the city guard's logbook. Within the past 3 years, Scholar Liu had only 2 recorded exits from the city. What was he doing in Fencheng? How could Xiao Li, who spent most of his time in the Wang Mountains, have encountered him so many times? I regretted agreeing to let Xiao Li become my tutor. Xiao Li wasn't as easy to fool as Scholar Liu. Back in the Wang Mountains, he taught my lessons. He understood my little tricks and was even more ruthless in punishing me. I'm grown up now. Punishments like copying texts are for children who play too much. For days, I rose early for court and stayed up late memorizing texts. Last night, utterly exhausted, I failed to complete Xiao Li's assignment and now he's making me copy books. Must copy. Xiao Li sat in my chair, sipping tea leisurely without lifting his eyes from the pastries before him, devouring them one by one. I laughed in exasperation. I lunged to snatch the pastry from his hand. Xiao Li raised the plate high above his head. My eyes narrowed, a smile tugging at my lips. I reached out and tapped the armrest. The chair back swiftly collapsed. Seeing this, Xiao Li grabbed my shoulders, sending me crashing into him. The falling plate grazed my earlobe before smashing into Xiao Li. Ouch! Xiao Li groaned muffled beneath me. I looked down to see the corners of his eyes reddened. The impact must have hurt him. Heat flushed my cheeks as I pushed off his chest and scrambled upright. Xiao Li rose slowly, inspecting the chair's mechanism. This chair's contraption is poorly modified, he remarked. I averted my eyes and took a few steps back, intending to summon the imperial physician. Xiao Li shook his head. He carefully gathered the sugar cake plates, then looked at me calmly. Disrespecting your teacher and the way. Your punishment is to copy it again. I didn't argue. I squatted by the windowsill and copied silently for the rest of the afternoon. I still didn't finish because Pei Zhun arrived. I glanced at Xiao Li, who turned sideways to read, ignoring me. Fine. I stood up, hopped a few times to stretch my numb legs, and beckoned him in. When Pei Zhun entered and saw Xiao Li seated while I stood by, his expression darkened instantly. I silently blocked his gaze from Xiao Li. What brings you here? Pei Zhun's expression soured further as he pulled a roster from his robe and handed it to me. I opened the registerate, listed the officials invited to next month's Kangshan hunting expedition. Where is Scholar Liu? After the incense altar festival. Grand Scholar Liu returned to his hometown in Huainan. He left so abruptly. I finished reviewing the roster. The rest were listed in order of rank without error. Add Xiao Li's name. I closed the roster and handed it back to Pei Zhun. Though Master Xiao serves as imperial tutor, he is not among the officials. This violates the ancestral regulations of Great Liang. Hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle softly, lowering my brows to look at Pei Zhun. Minister Pei, don't make me repeat myself. Those who established the ancestral laws have long been buried beneath the earth, becoming yesterday's dust. Shouldn't the Great Liang of today be decided by me? Otherwise, why would I have abandoned Xiao Li to become this imperial princess subject to so much meddling? The door closed softly behind me, leaving only Xiao Li and me in the room. I turned around. Xiao Li had set aside the book he'd been reading at some point and was now watching me quietly. Why are you looking at me like that? Nothing. Just noticed the little girl from the mountain has grown up. I shrugged and sat back down to copy the text. Shengjing is the most splendid city in this world, yet also the most perilous, relying solely on that version of myself from the mountain. I could never have survived here. Daliang hasn't had an empress for a century. Back then, General Wang's family defied all opposition to bring me back and secure my ascension. But these past 3 years, every branch of the imperial family has kept a watchful eye on me. I cannot be so useless as to indulge only in revelry, nor so accomplished as to make them restless. For someone in power to reach my position, it's a rare kind of frustration. If any of my brothers had ascended the throne instead, would they still be lying in wait like this? Alas, my brothers were not destined to share my fate. Xiao Li had been in Shengjing for over half a month, supervising my studies daily. I was truly at my wit's end. I dislike those poems and writings. You must study them. Xiao Li sat with eyes closed, slowly manipulating the beads in his hand. His expression was solemn as a deity in the temple. Yet he possessed such passionate eyes. even shrouded in the shadows cast by his long lashes. They remained hauntingly alluring. I exhaled slowly, shifting my gaze to resume idle chatter. History and military strategy can help me govern and defend against enemies. What use are those poems and writings? They can help you spend less time looking at those useless illustrated books. I was speechless. Over these days, the illustrated books I'd collected over 3 years had been confiscated by Xiao Li, leaving only a handful behind. It could be said that the sole pleasure I'd found since returning to the capital had been crushed by Xiao Li. The Changshan hunting expedition was imminent, and the princes of Huainan and Chu were preparing to enter the capital once more. I tapped the books before me with irritation. Last time the Prince of Huainan came, I had feigned illness to avoid him. Now I would have to face these men again. The book was snatched from my hands. I looked up to see Xiao Li standing before me, in the midday sunlight. He seemed bathed in a halo, like an immortal descended to the mortal world. Slowly, he spoke. "What about that matter I asked you to investigate last time?" "When did I ask you to investigate anything?" "The night I returned to the palace. I told you about Liu Zhou going to Fengzhou. Don't tell me you didn't notice anything amiss." "Liu Chu. Grand Scholar Liu. You knew he was suspicious all along. A court official making multiple trips to Wangshan without cause. I don't buy that. There's nothing to it. I'd known since childhood that Xiao Li was exceptionally sharp. My own wariness and suspicion had developed over the years back in the capital. But with just one glance could see straight into a person's heart. Xiao Li's suspicions were correct. Liu Zhu had serious issues. His records of leaving the city didn't match reality. A mere civil official with no real power. Yet he could manipulate the official accounts. This meant he had people within the city guard. My spies reported he never returned to his ancestral home in Huainan. So where was he rushing to leave Shengjing for? How did you get him to recommend you to Shengjing?" I asked Xiao Li curiously. "I don't know," Xiao Li replied, methodically arranging his desk. I merely walked past him. And he was so struck by my beauty he grabbed me. I couldn't help but chuckle. Liu Zhu was clever in his own way. He recognized the resemblance between Xiao Li's features and Pei Zhun's. So he sought him out specifically for meal to smoothly shed his role as imperial tutor and depart Shengjing. For him to come personally must mean it was an extremely important matter. The desk gradually became tidy. I stared at Xiao Li's focused profile, hesitating before cautiously asking. "So, you came to Shengjing because you were a little worried about me?" Xiao Li's hand paused mid-motion. "I don't, Xiao Li. You can't lie to me." I cut him off swiftly, as if reading my flustered state. Xiao Li's almond-shaped eyes met mine in silent contemplation before he sighed softly. "Li, it's not a little. I'm deeply worried about you. As an empress, a woman must confront not only the complexities of court politics, but also the countless prejudices held by others." Xiao Li had initially opposed my return to the capital. Yet he couldn't sway my resolve. Only by becoming the imperial princess of Daliang could my mother's status as a deposed consort be revoked, allowing her to be buried alongside the emperor as she had wished. Though I saw little honor in being buried with that man, it was at least my mother's final wish. "It'll be fine," I whispered softly. The Changshan hunt drew near. I suspected those two old foxes, the Prince of Huainan and the Prince of Chu, might scheme during the hunt. So I had Wang Su reinforce security. Yet for 6 consecutive days, nothing unusual occurred within the hunting grounds. This year, however, their haul was unusually plentiful. Watching Xiao Li chant the sutra for the departed souls, I couldn't help but smile. He never spoke out against our killing. Yet he chanted sutras all night long. Xiao Li sometimes had these stubborn obsessions I couldn't fathom. The old abbot of Kiyomizu Temple said it was his Buddhist nature. I just found it endearing. Seated at the head of the bonfire, I idly gnawed on a roasted lamb leg. Eunuch Yu, likely fearing I might be rude, ordered servants to pour wine for the two princes. I hear the imperial princess has a new tutor today. His features bear a striking resemblance to Chancellor Pei. Why not step out and greet us? The Prince of Huainan, seated to my left, suddenly spoke. His gaze fixed on me with keen interest. If you don't know, don't speak. I tore at the leg of lamb, ignoring him. Prince of Huainan, must you bring gossip from the streets to pollute the imperial princess' ears? Prince Chu, silent for half the time, spoke up to stop him. That's not quite right. Where there's smoke, there's fire, imperial princess. If I were you, I wouldn't spend my days in the palace with a mere substitute. Wouldn't you agree? I set down the lamb leg in disappointment. Eunuch Yu promptly handed me a hand-cleansing cloth. None of your damn business, I said coldly, wiping my fingertips. What did you— The Prince of Huainan's smile froze on his face. He couldn't believe what I'd said, though I'd always disliked him. He'd never neglected outward courtesy before. I said, none of your damn business. My words came out sharp and deliberate, ringing clear in the silent night. You. The Prince of Huainan slammed his hand on the table, his face flushing crimson. I tossed the cloth aside and turned to leave. Eunuch Yu hastily announced the banquet's end, while the prince's shouts echoed behind us. Late into the night, I sat upright on my bed, eyes closed, waiting for something. Past midnight. Light flared outside the tent. Stepping out, I saw countless arrows bearing torches streaking across the sky, hurtling toward us. Protect the imperial princess. Eunuch, a shrill voice exploded beside me as he threw himself in front of me. I frowned and sniffed sharply. Princess, stay behind this old servant and don't move. Whoosh! A fiery streak streaked past my eyes, igniting the tent behind me. Under the blaze, my position was laid bare. The arrows seemed to have eyes, flying straight toward us. I pulled Eunuch Yu back swiftly. Ali. Xiao Li galloped toward us on horseback. I grabbed his hand and leapt onto the saddle. Eunuch Yu hurriedly mounted the horse behind us, amidst the sky filled with flying fire. Xiao Li held me close. His chest pounded fiercely. The night wind blew bitterly. Yet the hands covering mine were warm and dry. The sharp whistling of blades cutting through the air rang in my ears. A faint scent of blood spread. I clung tightly to Xiao Li. Don't be afraid, came his gentle voice above the clamor. I wasn't afraid, forcing myself to ignore the bloodstain on his arm. I pulled a smile. Xiao Li, we really are a pair of desperate lovers. The ambushers had hidden halfway up the hillside, but Wang Shu and the Great Liang guards swiftly suppressed them. Outside the tent, everyone knelt in silence. I remained quiet. Xiao Li's wound, a terrifying gash grazing his left shoulder, was being meticulously treated by the imperial physician. I knew my gamble was risky, but I never expected him to be the one injured. Xiao Li kept his eyes lowered, the tear mole at the corner of his eye a startling crimson. The Prince of Huainan, pinned to the ground by Wang Shu, stared at me with panic in his eyes. Princess, I am innocent. It was your personal guards who set the fire. Had I not instructed General Wang to bring the Great Liang guards secretly? After tonight, Great Liang would have a new ruler. I folded my arms, observing the once mighty prince with pity. Those guards are indeed mine. But I lost my token tonight in my drunken stupor. When the fire started, I was still in my tent. I could never have ordered them to burn the hunting grounds. Your Highness jests. Everyone knows your legendary capacity for drink. How could you possibly be drunk after just a few cups at the banquet? I placed my hand lightly on Xiao Li's bandaged arm, a glint of murderous intent flickering in my eyes. Prince of Huainan is guilty of treason. He shall be executed after the heavenly sacrifice ceremony. Emperor Fei Yue, How dare you? You should be grateful. With the heavenly sacrifice imminent, you'll still have a few days to live. The great Liang guards escorted the Prince of Huainan and his entourage away. I watched the Prince of Chu, his expression unchanging. As I slowly descended the steps to face him, Prince Chu, tell Mace what this imperial princess has done right. Whatever the imperial princess does is right. A gentle smile graced the Prince of Chu's handsome face. I burst out laughing. Then that's good. The night was as deep as ink. I waved my hand, and the attendants withdrew one by one. I helped Xiao Li to his feet, preparing to return to the tent. When Pei Zhun suddenly turned back, "Princess, I have something to report." Xiao Li patted my hand and walked inside alone. Pei Zhun watched Xiao Li leave with a complex expression, his gaze finally settling on me. "Your Imperial Highness was startled tonight." Pei Zhun's voice was slightly hoarse. "Minister Pei, have you found the one who stole the Prince of Huainan's token?" "Yes, but he escaped." Tonight was chaotic. Let Liu Zhu run if he must. Pei Zhun stared at me in disbelief. "Your Imperial Highness knew." I blinked and smiled. "Lately, someone has been constantly by my side, lecturing me, hearing it so often. It's as if I've suddenly understood. Princess, do you like that person now?" Pei Zhun's voice was extremely soft, fragments of it drifting to my ears on the night wind. "No," I corrected aloud. "Not now. I've liked that person since I was a child." Pei Zhun gazed at me silently. Finally, his eyes drifted down to my wrist. "Lately, I've been having strange dreams. I dream of the imperial princess's paintings. At first, they were blurry. But then the images grew clearer. The person in the painting had eyebrows and eyes similar to mine. But that person wore a Buddhist prayer bead bracelet." I remained silent, unsure why Pei Zhun was bringing up those paintings again. "Those paintings in your secret compartment. Who, exactly, are they of?" "Pei Zhun. I told you long ago the person I painted wasn't you." "I see," Pei Zhun nodded, as if he'd known the answer all along. Yet also as if he couldn't believe it. He staggered back a step, his eyes hollow and lifeless. Pei Zhun left. I stood there, feeling somewhat bewildered. "He likes you." I turned to find Xiao Li leaning against the tent flap, arms crossed, moonlight reflecting in his clear eyes. "I only like you," I said earnestly. Who Pei Zhun liked was none of my concern. "Oh." Xiao Li released his arms and walked back inside. I watched the flush spread across his ears, my heart fluttering with unexpected joy. For the first time, he hadn't deflected the topic. Life back in the palace felt like returning to the past. Since this year's heavenly sacrifice ceremony and the hunting expedition were scheduled close together, Prince Chu remained in the capital instead of returning to his fiefdom. Everyone seemed deliberately forgetting that a prince, sentenced to death, still languished in the great prison. I sat cross-legged on the ground, moving the triangular flag representing Liu Jue from the Prince of Huainan's side to the Prince of Chu's. I had assumed Liu Jue was loyal to the Prince of Huainan, yet after retiring, he hadn't returned to his ancestral home in Huainan. Instead, he concealed his tracks, first traveling north, then secretly returning to Shengjing, where the Prince of Huainan hid him among his personal guards. The north that was the Prince of Chu's fiefdom. In other words, he was a pawn the Prince of Chu had planted beside the Prince of Huainan. This also explained why the Prince of Huainan's personal guards had recklessly set fire during the hunt even, though the fool hadn't given the order. Liu Chu must have used the Prince of Huainan's token to issue the command. He, Prince of Chu, wanted this throne. Besides me, he had another formidable enemy, Prince of Huainan. Therefore, he needed to use my hand to eliminate the Prince of Huainan first. But what made him so certain I would hand over the throne to him? Clutching the triangular flag in my hand, My mind slowly unraveled the threads of the mystery. Wang Shan. Liu Chu. My eyes snapped open. Your origins. Xiao Li's voice sounded from behind me. He sat cross-legged beside me, holding a lamp, studying the sand table with evident admiration. You've mastered the sand table simulations I taught you. I rubbed the triangular flag in my hand. They want to prove I'm not my mother's child, if they're ready. The grand heavenly sacrifice would be the perfect moment. Xiao Li took my flag and set it aside, then produced a sugar cake from nowhere. Placing it in my hand, Xiao Li and I silently nibbled on the sugar cake, our minds churning with more and more thoughts. The direct imperial bloodline may be thin, but there's a whole mess of princes. What makes the Prince of Chu think he can sit securely on the throne after the Queen of Huainan? The Prince of Chu must have something else up his sleeve. Xiao Li finished first, brushing his wide sleeves. I nodded, pondering the unusual calm in the court lately. A vague suspicion began to form. Xiao Li, if I lose, where do you think they'll send my mother's ashes? As a deposed consort, having lost her daughter's status as imperial princess, could she still be buried alongside that man? You won't lose. Xiao Li's clear, open features under the moonlight resembled a celestial being descended to earth. I stared at him in a daze, suddenly curious. Xiao Li, all the monks at the Bodhi temple have Dharma names. You've been the old abbot's disciple for so long, why hasn't he given you one? Xiao Li turned his face toward the lantern's flame. His otherworldly features softened with ordinary warmth. Yet it was an extraordinary kind of beauty. The day you left, the master bestowed a Dharma name upon me. I refused it. What was it? Was it old-fashioned and unpleasant? My curiosity deepened. No. It was because my Buddhist heart was unsettled. I felt unworthy of those two characters. Which two characters? Li, W-U. Li Wuto. Transcend worldly attachments to attain supreme clarity and freedom. I suddenly clutched the Buddhist prayer beads at my wrist, a strange feeling flitting through my heart. Then, why was your Buddhist heart unsettled? It felt like an eternity had passed as long as 3 years. Yet as fleeting as a single momentous, birds flitted across the courtyard. Xiao Li smiled softly. That day, kneeling before my master, kneeling before the great Buddha statue, I somehow remembered the red ribbon you gave me before you left. I blinked, suddenly recalling that I had indeed given Xiao Li a gift. It was the first present I'd ever given him. I'd searched for ages at the foot of Mount Wangshan for that red ribbon, even staying up all night, carving a wooden box for it adorned with lotus flowers. His favorite. Yet he'd returned it. To this day, that gift lies hidden away with the paintings in some dark corner of the palace behind me. Soon, the grand heavenly sacrifice would arrive. Early that morning, Eunuch Yu dragged me from bed, after bathing, burning incense, and praying to the gods. I was shoved into a sedan chair. Just as the curtain fell, I called out to Eunuch Yu. Eunuch Yu, how long has it been since I returned to Wangjing? 3.5 years. Princess B, that reckoning. We've shared 3.5 years of master-servant devotion. To serve the imperial princess is this old servant's greatest blessing. I smiled faintly and settled back into my seat. That night at the Kangshan hunt, I caught the faintest whiff of peach blossom drunk perfume on Eunuch Yu. Later, I detected the same scent on Prince Chu. That fool. The Prince of Huainan, though a poor drinker, could hold his liquor well, yet had barely touched his cup before spouting drunken nonsense at the banquet, provoking my wrath. Something must have been slipped into his wine, and the only one with access to his drinks at the time was Eunuch Yu. I pressed my temples, resting quietly. The carriage halted before the majestic altar of the sacred mountain. The curtain was lifted once more. The imperial princess has arrived. I stepped down gracefully, performed the ritual 3 kneels and 9 bows, then prepared to place 3 incense sticks into the burner. Hold. The Chu King's voice cut through the air. I slowly opened my eyes, a shadow flickering in their depths. Here it comes. I withdrew my hand and turned to see Lu Zhouyi leading someone from the crowd. I recognized her, the midwife who had delivered me. So Lu Jue had been coming and going all this time to find her. The midwife, adorned in gold and silver, strode forward and pointed at me, shouting that I was not the imperial princess. How dare you speak so insolently to the imperial princess? General Wang stepped in front of me. What proof do you have to make such an accusation that could destroy 9 generations of her family? I have proof. Of course. When I delivered the imperial princess, there was a lotus mark on her wrist. Eunuch Yu. What nonsense are you spouting? The imperial princess wrist is smooth and unblemished. Where would there be a lotus mark? After speaking, Eunuch Yu seemed to have an epiphany. He hurried down the steps, staring at me in disbelief. So she is a fake. In an instant, the court erupted in commotion. Wang Su's anger intensified. Having come from the blood-soaked battlefields, he now glared at the midwife, his aura becoming even more terrifying. Who do you think you are? Daring to smear the imperial princess with slander based on some random person you found? Wang Su lunged forward to grab her, but the midwife quickly ducked behind Liu Chu. I stepped down from the altar, patted Wang Su's shoulder, and gestured for him to make room. Master Liu. It's been a while. I smiled at Liu Chu, who merely gave a peculiar chuckle and asked if I knew this midwife. I do. Grandma Zhang. I nodded. Whispers began to stir around us, making Wang Shu even more agitated. The Prince of Chu strode forward, his face wearing a smug, triumphant smile. So then, the imperial princess admits she is an imposter. I shook my head and extended my wrist. The smile froze on the Prince of Chu's face. On my jade-like, pearly white wrist, a lotus mark stood out clearly before everyone. Impossible. Liu Zhou shouted. Why is it impossible? I countered. Lu Yui and the King of Chu turned ashen, yet not a word escaped their lips. Of course they couldn't speak. The lotus mark was their own fabrication. After midwife Zhang arrived in Shengjing 10 days prior, the Prince of Chu had her guarded with ironclad security. Yet the people of Wangshan were devout Buddhists, believing in karma and retribution. Having agreed to such a deed, Zhang feared the Buddha's wrath and thus visited the Bodhi temple daily to worship. Guards were forbidden inside the temple, so Xiao Li had used the guise of divine beings to frighten her there. Terrified, she confessed everything before the Buddha statue, unaware that Xiao Li stood right behind it. Your Highness, don't frown like that. This princess has another gift for you. My gaze swept coldly over the figures before me. Xiao Li arrived with the Prince of Huainan. The Prince of Huainan spotted Lu Zhou trailing behind the Prince of Chu and instantly realized he'd been ambushed. He leaped forward, ready to strike. The guards, unaccustomed to witnessing princes fighting at a heavenly sacrifice ceremony, hesitated over whether to intervene. I signaled to General Wang, who immediately sprang into action, grabbing the Prince of Huainan by one arm and the Prince of Chu by the other. He ordered the guards to escort Lu Yue and the midwife away. Seeing this farce finally conclude, the court officials below exchanged glances. Finally, Minister Q stepped forward. The traitors have been apprehended. We implore the imperial princess to continue the ceremony and not delay the proceedings. I regarded him with a half-smile. No rush. Let's wait a little longer. I brushed the steps of the altar and sat down cross-legged on the ground. Wait a little longer. Once Pei Zhun arrives, this matter will truly be settled. The sun had climbed high, long past the appointed hour for the heavenly sacrifice. Xiao Li pulled out a sugar cake, and we began munching on it in plain view of everyone. Truth be told, I still preferred stuffed pastries. Lately, eating sugar cakes with Xiao Li had left my teeth aching. I turned my head to watch Xiao Li eat with such focus, feeling a touch of envy for his iron teeth. Just as Minister Q stepped forward to speak again, the sound of horse hooves grew louder from afar. Pei Zhun, clad in crimson, leapt from his mount. Clutching a piece of brocade white silk, he raced up the sacred altar. Kneeling before it, he presented the cloth with both hands. Princess, as per your command, I found this item in the Prince of Chu's residence, the Book of Officials. I feigned surprise, slowly reaching out to take it. Below the steps, expressions varied wildly. At the forefront, Q Shillong's forehead was already beaded with sweat as large as soybeans. Every official who had pledged allegiance to the Prince of Chu had personally inscribed their name upon this cloth. My gaze swept over the crowd below the steps, finally settling on Q Shillong. Minister Ku Yu, aren't you curious who signed this register of officials? Named. He flinched, then threw himself to his knees. One by one, the others followed, until every single one knelt on the ground. We dare not. I snorted derisively. What is there to fear? It's merely overturning imperial authority. What a pity the man you chose is utterly useless. As I spoke, I toyed with the silk in my hand, my expression growing colder. Beneath the altar, not a sound could be heard. Suddenly, I tossed the silk into the charcoal fire atop the altar. Whoosh! Flames swiftly engulfed the fabric, reducing the once white brocade to smoking black ashes. Princess! Pei Zhun cried out in alarm. I casually clapped my hands. But who can guarantee every choice in life is correct? I offer you all a chance. From this day forward, we may all begin anew. The crowd below the platform looked up in shock, watching the flames consume the ashes. I continued. I understand why you chose Prince Chu. You doubted me solely because I am a woman, convinced that women are inherently inferior to men. Naturally, few women in this realm possess the education and literacy you do, trapped within their homes, bound by husbands and children. They cannot match your erudition citing classics or discussing ancient and modern affairs. Yet such a contest is profoundly unfair by gaze drifted to the horizon, my heart brimming with boundless joy. Therefore, let us make a wager. From this day forward, the court shall establish schools for women. Women, too, may strive for official rank through their own efforts. Only then will our contest be fair. When that time comes, you may open your eyes wide and see what women of this realm are truly capable of. I inserted the incense stick, previously reserved for the divine offering, into the censer. The ritual to the heavens was now complete. What say you, ministers? The court officials knelt on the ground, glancing around at their colleagues' expressions. Finally, a voice rang out from the crowd. The imperial princess is wise. The imperial princess is wise. Wang Shu led the great Liang guards, their swords drawn before them. None dared to disagree. I winked at Xiao Li, and a smile flickered in his eyes as his vermilion hair ribbon fluttered behind him. The Prince of Huainan returned to Huainan. The Prince of Chu and his entourage were all demoted to commoners and exiled to the northern frontier alongside midwife Zhang. Pei Zhun's marriage was repeatedly postponed. Ned, I inquired several times, but he only frowned, clearly unwilling to answer. Later, I encountered Liu Qiqi, a strikingly beautiful woman. Spotting me, she curtsied gracefully, neither fearful nor flustered. She confessed knowing Pei Zhun had fallen for someone at first sight, yet declared she was willing to wait. Winter arrived swiftly. Beneath the blanket of snow, lotuses still bloomed before the palace halls. How remarkable, Xiao Li remarked, wrapped in his cloak as he gazed upon the snow-covered lotus spectacle. Misty white vapors rose from the lotus pond, creating a scene straight from a fairy tale. I smiled faintly. That was the second year after returning to the palace. I had craftsmen channel hot springs from outside the palace into the lotus pond, ensuring the flowers bloomed year-round without fading. Back then, I always thought, once the pond bore 99 lotus blossoms, I would go to Mount Wangshan, capture Xiao Li, and bind him to the palace with that red ribbon. The great Liang guards would surround the palace in layers. Even with his sharp wit, he couldn't escape my grasp. He'd have no choice but to sit there, accompanying me as we filled in every feature on those paintings. What are you thinking about? Pei Zhun handed me a hot water bottle. Wondering if you saw those paintings when you were searching for that ribbon in my palace. I saw them. Xiao Li scratched his nose and continued, and felt a bit cheated. I looked at him in confusion. When I was at Mount Wangshan, I drew many portraits of you too. Every single one had a clear face. I instinctively touched the bracelet on my wrist and asked softly, "Why did you draw me?" I didn't understand it while painting either. Xiao Li took my hand. Now, perhaps it's because after parting at Mount Wang, I began to love you. Xiao Li drew me into his embrace, resting his head lightly on my shoulder. The crimson hair ribbon fell, brushing against my lips. Xiao Li of Mount Wang descended the mountain for me, entered the mortal world for me. The end.